Okay, so today we got the Maximus-3 winch plate for the JT. It will also fit the JL. This is going to kind of be just a very quick unboxing, not going over every little part, and just a very quick install due to the fact there's already ones out there. I'm just want to particularly show this particular brand because when I searched for it, it was hard to find some details to it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open this thing up and take a look at what all it's got. Off the bat, the way they've shipped it does come very well packed. It's all together one piece. It does have the instructions with it. And with it, as you can tell, it is very well stuck together where it doesn't look like it's going to get much damage. We did get the one with the red plate. We'll show you later kind of what that entails and what that has differently. It's more for cosmetic looks. But this part here will go where the fair lead mount is. And then it's got these two little hooks on the corners that go to where your rope can latch around and your winch hook can go on it. Alright, so as you can tell here, these are going to be your support brackets that are going to help tie the actual mount into the brace. And this here was that front part I was telling you about with the red. This is a good solid piece of metal. I believe all of this is 1/4 inch, although looking at it, this red piece might be just a little bit thinner. But I do know the main bracket part is going to be 1/4 inch for the Maximus-3, which is comparable to the worn winch mount that is out there. Alright, so what we end up having to do is this back plate here, we're going to have to pull that off. You just use a small flathead screwdriver and pry up on the little brackets. And we'll get you around to show that. So that little piece there, you're going to put your flathead screwdriver. There's actually kind of a bad angle on this one, but we're going to pry these out. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we have to remove this little cosmetic piece. To get these little trim pieces out, you have to use a flathead screwdriver, and there's a little tiny space in here. If you look, you just got to pry it in and pry these up. They are a little pain, but when they come out, that's what you are looking at. And then this part here, once you get both sides, it's just going to lift up and out of the way. Alright, the next part that we're going to do is we're going to remove these bolts here, which are a T45. And if you're not familiar, that is this little star pattern looking piece. And we're going to do that for all of them. Alright, once we get all those removed, this part here is just going to come out and we're going to lift it up out of the way. Alright, following the instructions, the next thing we're going to do is disconnect the fog lights. You're going to do that by the little safety pin here. We're going to have to push this down and pull it back out. Alright, for the next part here, we're going to use an 18mm deep socket, and we're going to break all these loose. There's 4 of them, 2 on this side and 2 right on the other side of it. And then there's going to be the other side of the vehicle that we're going to do. I'm going to start it off this way here. I'm probably going to get in with my my impact hammer, just to make things a little quicker. Alright, and the next thing we need to do before taking out the 18mm bolts is we've got to come down here to our skid plate and pull out these. I believe there were 7 of them. They're across the top and 2 at the back here. So here's one right here. And then the last one I got is right here. Now we can move back up to do the 18mm bolts. Alright, I've already gotten the rest of this off. We're going to pull this one off. And now we're ready to lift it off. All right, the next step we're going to do, using a 16 millimeter, we're going to take these two off on the inners. And we're going to take that completely off. All right, the next thing what we're going to do is slide this into place. It was kind of hard to show this, but we did use the longer bolts. It came from the bag that also had these 4 nuts in it, and not these shorter ones. And you're going to put the washer on it, and it's going to go in right here. I did find that it was very easy to use a rubber mallet to kind of help move this around a little bit. It does fit in. It is a very tight fit, and now we're going to have to squeeze the nut inside the hole and go and tighten that down. All right, the next part that it's wanting to do is go ahead and we're going to grab those small bolts, and we're going to temporarily put them in here to line things up. And this is going to make sure that when we go to tighten down the rear, that it's in the right position, not able to move. These will later come out for your factory bolts to come back in. All right, so once we've tightened these ones down, this is now flat in place. And now we're going to move to the lower ones, putting these into that little tiny hole we showed you. All right, you guys, so this nut is going to be serrated, so you don't have to do this, but this is one of those safety backup things I like to do, is just going to put a little bit of thread locker on it. And this is going to help it, just prevent it from backing off at all. And now we're going to tighten this down. Since this is a serrated nut, you don't have to get any tools on this side. It should grab into that metal and hold its place without any issues. And then we're just going to come and actually tighten down from this side, which is a 19 millimeter, so I gotta grab that. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is grab our winch and put it on. I'm putting on a worn Xeon 10S. This is an older one that we are actually carrying over from another vehicle. So we're gonna put it on. It is already dirty. I do have the bolts in it, so it's gonna be a little bit more cumbersome for me to kind of get in there and get the bolts. So I'm not gonna show the exact amount, but we're gonna lay it on, and there's already pre-drilled holes for all of these different spots. And we're gonna tighten that up from the bottom side. All right, so as I showed here, our winch, we've got our old bolts in here with our washers. The bolts do slide in from the underside, and what we're going to try to prevent is when we rotate this in is not to lose those out of position. They are a little hard to get up in there and move, but we're going to now roll this to the correct position. So keep an eye on our cables, and our line's going to come to the front. And we're going to come up from the bottom side and go ahead and put our bolts in now. All right, we've got that. We've got the nuts and bolts tightened down on here. This is one item it did say that we could remove before putting the weight on, but I decided to go and put it on at first, and then we'll remove it afterwards. But you could take it off. As you can tell, there is very small amount of spacing, but it does just barely squeeze in. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get off this little front plate. And you can do that just by pushing these little tabs with your finger, and it's going to pop on out. Once that's out, we're going to go ahead and mount it into our red plate and get that ready to go back on. All right, as you can see, I've just put this in place after popping that out, and we are going to use the Allen nuts and bolts that came with it, and this is going to be a 5 millimeter Allen wrench. And what we're going to do is just put these through your outer holes in all 4 spots. And again, it's using these same type of nuts that have the serrated edges that don't allow it to spin. But we're still going to go ahead and just put in a little bit of Loctite on the back side. And then we're going to put in our fair lead right here on those inner spots. So we're going to walk through that and we'll show you the end product. All right, so we've gotten the fair lead bolts tightened down. These ones are sticking out a little bit, and although they've got that serration, they are going to need help to kind of get tightened down. So we are going to use the wrench and socket, a deep socket on this side. It's a 13 millimeter, and we're going to tighten these 4 down. On the back side, we'll do those just one by one. All right, and as you can tell, we've got that all bolted up. Now, before we stick this on, I do want to go over a couple different points that are out there on the different types of mounts that you can get. I had originally actually placed an order for the ATP, American Trail Products winch. I did that one. It was actually almost about $75 cheaper, plus I had a coupon. But I ordered it 6 weeks ago, and it's been on back order. and they hadn't gotten it. Originally, that was not an issue for me because I wasn't planning to go off-roading in the near future. I had a couple other stuff planned, and our first trip to go into the mountains was supposed to be about 2 more months from now. Some of our plans got changed, and we're going this weekend. I needed to get a winch and get it installed quicker, sooner than later. Luckily, my local shop, Cape Fear Customs, if you're near Wilmington, North Carolina, was able to supply me. They had this in stock, so I was able to literally call them this morning, pick it up, and have it installed ready to go for this weekend. It is the same thickness as the Warren, the 1/4 inch, like I said earlier. But one of the big things I can see the difference of between this and the ATP one is how this is only attached here in this lower portion. The ATP has a full bracket that comes all the way across, and it covers all 4 of these. I don't think that's really going to lead to much of a difference, as most of your pulling power is going to come from these 2 back ones. It's more than sufficient. And what they've done is they've supplied a spacer kit to basically come here so that the bumper does not have a different pull from these sides. So it is going to do the same thing with having the thickness, but I kind of like knowing that this was going to be one solid piece with the ATP one I bought. But with that being said, being in stock, it is ready to go. Now, one of the nicer things that I did not expect was this red piece right here. The ATP did not come with that. It did come with this little front plate. That does protect the warning. You can buy some of these pieces, but this part here coming with it, it was kind of worth that little bit extra money to us is what we kind of decided. And the fact that it is, I believe, powder coated, red, the same as the factory red pieces for the Rubicon. It did blend it in and make it worthwhile. And the fact that I was able to pick it up from the store, install today, and be ready to go made it worth that while. So we're going to put this all back together, and we'll get you a finishing shot of it all. I am going to come in here, though, and show you that spacing difference. As you can tell, there is not much space left at all. It is a very tight fit, but it does work the way it's supposed to. So before I put this back on, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and spray this down a little bit. I've just got some simple green, but since we have it off, might as well get some of that dirt off that we've already put on. We're not going to be able to reach this area for a good long time. With that being said, one of the things that you want to do, if you have not already installed your rope, go ahead and put that on beforehand, and make sure that when you go to put your bumper on, that this part here actually goes through the bumper, through the fair lead. Otherwise, you've got to try to get in there with nuts and bolts and try to connect that in later. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge if you haven't done that, so on that part there. Also, we're going to put these onto the actual back end of the bumper, so when we go to lift them in place, they're already going to be on the bumper side coming into place, instead of trying to lift it up and fight with it at the moment. You just have to make sure that you have the bumper leaned at a forward position. So let me go and clean this up, and we'll go to that. Alright, so let's see how this goes. As I said before, we're going to take our spacers, make sure to match them up on which ones they are going on, just so that you don't get them wrong. Take your winch line, and we're going to go ahead and feed that through. If you don't have it too tight, I would make sure to leave some extra space in the line, just for being able to move around. And now we're just going to lift this back up and into place. And this side here fell out, so we're going to come back over and try to get that back on place. It's not hard, but definitely was easier when I was on the ground. And once we get it on just a little bit, we'll go ahead and throw some of those nuts and bolts on, or the nuts on, that way it's held steady. Alright, you guys, one issue that I did run into, and I believe this was discussed on the early forums when this first came out, but the this part here is trying to hit. I forget what the name of it's called. I remember if you call Warren, they're supposed to supply you a new one that won't hit, but I'm going to have to give them a call, and I'm going to do that before I finish mounting this up in case they need serial numbers or anything else on that. Alright, you guys, regarding that part I was just discussing, I was able to find it online, call Warren. They are sending me the replacement piece. The bad thing about it is I'll have to pull this all back off because I've actually got to take the housing right here off of the winch to replace that part. But they do send it free of charge. My winch is one of the older ones, so the part number for that is 100240. And they're going to replace that. There is an online forum that basically has the install of how that's done, and to do it, it's not too difficult. But what ends up happening is this right here is in the engaged, and you can't turn this all the way. So they end up making it where the new one will only turn this far from here, where it doesn't hit. So that is coming. We'll have to fix that later, but we are still able to drive this and run it this weekend for off-roading. What I did want to go over is doing the wiring install. As you can tell, we ran that wire down, and I took it up in the back side, up in here, and I ran it to the top side. From in here, we've pulled the air box out. It is 4 screws you take off, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're going to take this part here off, which is that top, and just pull it out. It's got 2 little tiny rubber grommets that sticks to the bottom by those little pieces. Lift it out. From there, I was able to run the power wire down below. I've zip tied it up, if you can see the zip tie, and ran it to the back side of the battery, bringing the negative around, connected it on, and positive around. Drilled a very, very small hole in this here so that this goes over the factory cover part, and connected that on, and we are good to go. The nice part is, although I'm not able to do free spool on this, I am able to do it by remote. So if we do have a problem and we get stuck this upcoming weekend, I will just basically have to walk this line out while pulling the actual motor. Using that, I won't be able to free spool. But if we get stuck, it is a way to get out.